I think from tuning in, as you were describing, it helps you to recognize opportunities when they arise.
Mm-hmm.
So you're more likely to respond and take something forward. You're, if you like, your mind's prepared.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
To pick up on possibilities, opportunities, actions. So,
yeah, and if we're not, if we're not tuned in, sometimes we kind of go chasing after something that isn't perhaps the most useful thing we could do. We kind of get fooled, because we get into the left brain, the thinking mind, trying to work things out, and it doesn't always work things out right.
So I think it can make things happen more quickly. I mean, it speeds everything up, doesn't it? If you're attuned and you're ready to respond, you then can
yes,
quite a deep place within you because you've done a lot of preparation.
That's right.
And then if you can meet other people on that same, who are operating in that same way,
I
think you
becomes very powerful.
Yeah, it becomes very powerful. You get some sort of fusion.
Yes.
It really has an exponential effect, I think.
That's right.
Something like that.
That's exactly right, Rowena. Yes. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't want anybody to feel sort of, oh, I haven't got far enough yet. It doesn't really matter where we are on that journey, if you like, to enlightenment or deep awareness, whatever it is. It doesn't matter. We can get into very easily comparing ourselves with other people. Oh, I'm not very good at meditating. It's extremely difficult to judge, actually. I don't know. But, that's kind of not the point anyway. If we're moving in that direction, that's what's important. And I can, also this whole, we can easily kind of fall into this image of this ladder, and I'm down here and somebody else is up there. And actually, it's very misleading. Sometimes, somebody can seem to be right down there and suddenly, there's a good story about that, actually. I don't know if all of you know this story, the story of Lam Chung. Anybody know him?
No.
He was in the time of the Buddha, he was this monk. It's called Lam Chung. And he was renowned for being very sort of, not very intelligent. And his brother was an arhat, so he was one of the top people, in the Sangha. His brother was a very kind of high person. And he was, his brother was trying to teach him and couldn't teach him, kind of gave up on him. I'm terribly sorry. Just go on. He couldn't learn anything. And he was trying to memorize 2 words of the teaching. I think there was a verse of the teaching. He was trying to memorize 1 verse of teachings, and every time he remembered half of the verse, he forgot the other half. And so the Buddha, he was sitting there, he was in despair, and the Buddha came along and said, "What's the matter?" And to explain. And the Buddha gave him 2 words of teaching and told him to sweep out the temple. So he would go and sweep out the temple. And each time he swept 1 half of the floor, and to say this mantra, which was, just 2 words. And so he was very happy because Buddha had given him a practice to do, and he was sweeping away. And every time he swept 1 half of the temple floor, the Buddha would create dust on the other half, kind of just manifest magically, create some dust. And he would sweep some more, and he carried on sweeping, very happy. Suddenly it occurred to him that this dust was not inherently existent. And he started meditating on that, and he became an arhat. And he was, and the Buddha then told him he needed to go and teach this group of nuns. And these nuns were very outraged that he'd sent this stupid person to teach them. So they created a huge, very high throne for him with no steps. So he would then be flummoxed. And so he saw this, and apparently he came along and he looked, he sized up the situation. So he made this. But because he had now high spiritual realizations, he had magical powers. So he made the throne become enormous, and he made it become very small. And he flew up to the top of the throne, and he gave them this teaching. So, you know, I just wanted to say that because yeah, because sometimes it seems very difficult, and we feel like, you know, well, I'm not really there. I'm not really getting there, and there is no getting there, and there is no not being there. We never know what's around the corner. Anyway, bit of a bit of a diversion there from the main topic.
No, that's good.
One of the things I was aware of was that when you were saying about what do we ourselves, what have we ourselves done, and you know, how have we actually done it, and I was just, it prompted me to sort of think of my own little journey as such, and to say that some, you know, when it started, whenever it was, goodness knows when it was, and I guess it started a long time ago, but then you get a little sidetracked. But that sidetrack is often something that you're needing to do at that moment.
That's right.
And then you build on that, and then you come back onto the path again, and then you have another little sidetrack. And again, there's something from there that you then, it builds you up, and so by the time you come back to the path each time, you've actually gained another little jewel or the little gem of some sort.
Very good, Dee. Yes.
I don't know whether there is a story about that, but that's what it makes me feel, that, you know, each time when you've done it, there's been a reason for it. So it's fine to go off and do that. And maybe all of these other people at the moment are off doing other things.
Indeed, that's absolutely right. Yeah, no, and very good, Dee. And you know, I'm sure there clearly is a story, because like your story,
yes, I'm sure.
My story is one very like that.
Yeah.
Perhaps all of us are like that. Yes, that's absolutely true. You know, we look back and think, oh gosh, you know, I went way off the track there and there and there, and you know, like, I mean, I've been all over the place, and I was doing all of these things 40 years ago. I was doing Buddhism and Tantra and activism and all of these things, and I come back and I think, I've been all these years, but at the same time, like you say, all of those different things have somehow over the time they connect up, and it makes sense, and so everything is actually leading us to where we're going. There's no actually, you know, there's no detours really. It's a circuitous kind of path, but this is the path. Each of us is following the path that we need to follow.
I think you put it much better, but my thoughts while you were talking about these things was, yes, the root cause is the separation of the self and the environment. Something that I was making a comment on this morning. Someone was talking about, but this is to do with the violence with the black man who was murdered. And he said, oh, you're an ecological group. You shouldn't be talking about this thing. That's political. And again, that's the fragmented view of environment and self, environment and society. All these different aspects of the same thing are looked at from a fragmented point of view. And I find that quite often, particularly, well, I noticed more in the 60s and 70s, where practicing yoga or being an environmentalist was a fashionable statement. You wanted to belong to this fashionable group. And again, the light didn't dawn on them that it's just one aspect of the entirety that is life. And because of the fragmented view, I think you were talking about the political power. Quite often people want to get in there, sometimes for genuinely good reasons, that I will have the power, I can do good things. And then when they get the power, the fragmentation kicks in, where oh, I've got the power, but these people are not doing what I want them to do.
Yeah,
That
that's,
leads to frustration. Yeah,
that's right. I mean, it's often very idealistic people that go into politics,
yeah,
and then when they get into high positions of power, that
yeah.
idealism seems to evaporate. Very few people seem to be able to maintain. Barack Obama, was a exceptional example. There are a few like that, but it's very rare that people, they've actually taken on something that is too good for them. Really. Mostly, so to maintain a non-attachment, if you like,
Mm, mm.
uh, in having that level of political power is very challenging. And you need somebody who's got a very strong spiritual grounding to be able to not fall for the temptation of power, which is extremely destructive.
Yeah, I mean, Obama had his own dark side. But in contrast, of course, um, he was far better than many other presidents that came along. Yeah, so it's the separation that leads to frustration, that you can't control everything. And that's at the core of activism as well, where you feel the power should do what you want them to do.
Exactly right.
We are so many, and why can't these few people do what we want them to do? Why
Yeah.
can't all that activism work? And it doesn't work simply because, again, you're looking at it from a fragmented point of view. And I think you said in one of the previous talks that the change required is initially on an individual level, but also on a collective level. And unless that individual and collective change doesn't happen, the outside is not going to react to whatever we are doing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm. Thank you. So, yeah, and I've kind of thrown this in there, that curveball. Maybe this group should be doing something. I don't know what people think about it. I mean, I'm not, I'm certainly not laying it down, and it could be anything. But I suppose, just to bring that idea in there, that if we're looking at eco-dharma, it's a little bit different from other kinds of dharma, where we certainly can feel we're participating absolutely fully if all that we're doing is what we're doing on our cushion, right? Well, not entirely actually, because if our interactions with other people are not changing in their character, then there's something wrong. So yeah, and we, part of our spiritual practice is the practice of giving, for instance, and kindness and so on. So we have to be doing those things. But I suppose if this is not just spirituality, but spiritual activism that we're talking about, then what might that activism be? I mean, it could obviously be just, each of us doing whatever we want to do. No reason at all why this group should collectively decide to do something. But it's a thought.
I feel we could actually contribute something, but perhaps by letter writing. And think of a way of that's a peaceful way, and the letters can be read many times and reflected upon, and then go back to and by the receiver and also the writer, because I really feel that if we address it, it's so easy to try and section everything off, and I don't believe. I think we need to go beyond all the issues, like you say, with the root cause. You know, and you were saying about eating meat, people not being aware, and then I thought about, well, all the plants that are harmed in farming, all the soil that's
Yes.
used again and again and again. It's not just that, it's not just this, and it's the supermarkets that you could write to about plastics. We could maybe pool all the things that maybe are important to us as individuals, and then put them forward, and maybe start writing letters to people, because, you know, like that's one of the things, it's Bhutan, isn't it, where they put money before and put money after happiness, that happiness comes first. And that's one of our things in the Western world that I really feel we've got wrong.
Yes.
Is that profit, if people are putting profit before habitats, before anything else, then it's already doomed to failure. You know, so that we need to address like the heart of the matter, which is, I guess, connecting with our hearts, our own hearts, these others' hearts, and not just action of the one mind, but the one heart, of really coming to the heart of the matter, and maybe doing it, because I sometimes even feel when you do marches and things, it puts the other person in the wrong.
This is very, very key issue, Claire. Yeah.
And
We're,
that's what worries me a lot about I did marches when I was younger. I did certain things, and I really felt that often it just widened the gap.
Yeah.
And I really feel that we need to come to the balancing point in the middle, that is and just have lots of ways of maybe making, if people could see life would be fun and just as gregarious, perhaps even more so, by people connecting and having community, singing guitars, or just doing lots of mini things of life from a different level, from the heart, and just then other people looking from the outside, looking and think, oh my goodness, that looks happy, it looks less, no anxiety, people are just joyful from connecting in such a way. And I never know how to say this, it's difficult to express, but I think about it a lot. It's one of my things that makes me want to sort of try and do a living community thing, that really people come and find the joyfulness, find the non-judgment of that we're all at different levels, but just connect in the heart, and actually by joyful conversations and seeing things done differently, that we learn in a way that's is very touchy-feely and very supportive.
Lovely, thank you, Claire, and that's a lovely vision there, you know, and I completely you know, agree with all of that. I'm not sort of quite sure what it means that we do. I mean, even who are we writing letters to, and does that writing letters have to do with what you were just talking about, or, you know, there's so many things. But I mean, yeah, that spirit of,
I think the expression of that spirit can come about via letter writing. I know Ty used to write letters, and he wrote a letter to Mother Earth, and that's, you can get a print out of that, and you can read it as a reflective thing.
Okay, well, let's do that then.
I don't know.
No, let's read that letter. I think that'd be great. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, maybe, yeah, okay. I mean, I've been thinking for a while, I want to talk to, and I'm kind of, don't know why I haven't done this really, but because I kind of have so many projects on, and I think I need time, but to actually go and find out, you know, who are the people high up in the supermarket companies, and actually go and talk to them about, why do you have like, you know, in Tesco, for instance, you go in there to buy a sandwich, and there will be 25 different meat sandwiches and one vegetarian option.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's 25 times as many meat eaters as vegetarians. And anyway, meat eaters can eat vegetarian food. There's in the supermarket, you know, there's kind of, you know, the chill cabinet with kind of, you know, ready meals in there. And there'll be one vegetarian option and 45 meat options. I think, you know, you could very easily like make it 50-50. You know?
The plastics,
And that would make a huge change.
isn't
But they're
it?
not thinking. Restaurants, you know, they have 20 meat dishes and one vegetarian option in case a vegetarian comes in. But vegetarian foods are wonderful. Why is there more problem? Why? You know, and it just, but it strikes me as, and I don't want to go and berate people. I want to just, you know, very kindly and gently suggest, you know, this is a wonderful thing that you could do. It would be so easy. And I don't know why I haven't done it, except that I'm always busy.
It's creating just, it does more variety
Yeah.
for that it's more economical, but it's also like the packaging drives me crazy. I mean, they are getting a little bit better with these net and bags now, but I like to try and eat organic.
Yeah.
And I really think what we need to do is get this local out of packaging thing.
Yes.
And go back to more old fashioned ways when I was younger, how we used to shop.
Yeah.
And you'd select.
Yeah, mea culpa, Claire. You know, I've done this deep adaptation course, and one week, you know, they're suggesting different things each week, and they would say, okay, look at your food. What could you change? And I looked and I did different things, and then I decided first of all to stop buying non-vegan food because I, you know, had been still having a bit of butter and a bit of cheese and things. But then a couple of weeks later, I realised, okay, why am I buying a plastic box with coleslaw when I can buy a cabbage for half the price, make 3 times as much coleslaw, it's much nicer, you know, and I don't have to buy a plastic box. And hummus, I'm buying hummus in a plastic box. Crazy, it's easy to make. So I've stopped it, you know, okay, how far can I go? Of course, becoming vegan means now I have to buy plastic tubs of margarine. I don't know where I can get margarine. It's not in a plastic tub.
But I think the vegan issue, the problem is if people don't do that very carefully and very well, will bring about its own health issues. You know, that
yeah,
and
I mean, it's not a problem for me because I've been going that
pitfalls
way for years. So I know that the residual amount of dairy and eggs that I eat, it's not going to make any difference if I give them up. But yeah, right. I mean,
I mean, like the sunflower oils in margarine, you know, they're very high in oxalates, which create inflammatory responses in the body. Okay. And so it's like this idea, it's an interesting journey, and I don't think it's fully understood yet because most of the researches that have been done in the past have all been done from biased perspectives. So it's a very challenging area, but I think
we should do a session on food, shouldn't we, Claire?
Yeah, well, it would be interesting to explore because it's I find it amazing to explore the different things that we might think certain foods are very healthy for us, and actually a lot of vegetables, you see, I have this, I mean, actually it makes me sound quite crazy, but you know, vegetables don't want to be eaten either, you know, and they want to live too. And they put things in their systems to make it inhabit to challenge our digestive systems because they're trying survival too, and it's really quite, it's this life and death cycle that,
well, they're inseparable, aren't they? I mean, that's one of the things, you know, that we have this image with our kind of linear left brain mind that, you know, we want to have absolutely no toxic substances of any kind in our body. We only want things that are good for us. But that's a dualistic view that doesn't have any reality. I mean, there's no, you know, life actually needs to be challenged. Our bodies need to be challenged in order to be healthy. We need to be ill sometimes to be healthy. So, you know, this simplistic picture that I can somehow have 100% total health, you know, it doesn't have, there's no reality to it. Because life's not like that, is it?
You need to go back to eating mucky carrots like we used
Yeah. That's right.
But that was good. And I was just thinking
before you
back
die,
to my, early days in Leeds in 1970, and when you went to the sandwich shop, but you ordered your sandwich and you stood there while it was made, and then it was given to you. You know,
twisted corners in the back.
In the corners in the packet, exactly. Yeah, and it was a paper bag. You know, it was, and you could get all sorts of different things in it. But you know, you actually stood in line and waited, and that's when there were. It's this idea of, I think it was the Dalai Lama who said that by creating things to save time, you've actually lost time, and you haven't got the time that you actually have created. So somebody created a box and a plastic thing to put your sandwich in, but then you're still chasing after time all the time. Yeah.
Yes, that's right. Time. That's another thing we could look at. Very interesting.
I was thinking that next Wednesday will be after the Tuesday when we'll have had the discussion on.
That's true. So I realised as soon as I said it, actually, we don't need to have a talk about food next Wednesday because we're having one next Tuesday. Hopefully some of you or all of you can make that. That we to see where that goes. But we can certainly look at maybe some more specific topics.
I was wondering if we could have a time sometimes of sharing with each other what if there are things that we've done and how that's gone. You know, if we have in terms of.
Well, maybe we should do that next time.
You know, things that we might have. You know, reviewing things that we might have been engaged with, like say letter writing, or things that any of us might have done that hasn't been effective, or haven't been very effective, or haven't been effective in the moment but have been later, or something. To kind of pool ideas and experiences around different kinds of activism that we have done or could do in the future.
Should we do that next time? Do you think that's a good idea? Yeah.
Interest and exploration.
The thing looks as though he's approving. But okay.
Because I mean, I suppose it could be in different areas. It wouldn't necessarily totally need to be in an eco environment, would it? Or would it? I don't know. Would it be in kinds of activism?
Well, as Nitin pointed out, you know, there isn't a hard and fast separation between what's ecological and what's something else, because everything's ecological when you think about it.
And it's all linked in with questioning and not accepting, isn't it, as well? No matter which way you'd actually do things. It's the fact that usually from the political angle, it's an injustice of some sort that you are against being done, which is not much different than the ecological side, because you're against the damage that has been done to the earth. So it's all of these. It's an injustice of some sort, isn't it?
Yes, that you want to take action on. It's that concern or that you know, sense of injustice, and then acting on it, which you in different ways. So maybe if we could, that would be helpful to all our different experiences.
What amused me was to think that the number of people who were saying, "Oh, you shouldn't be talking about this social or political issue because you're supposed to be ecological group." I was quite amused to think that probably many of them are vegan and vegetarian. And they don't see violence of one kind as any different from the violence. I mean, they consider violence of one kind as being different from violence of another kind. It's an environmental violence. Whether you dig something up and damage the environment, or cut down trees and damage the environment, or you cut down a person.
And it doesn't need to be against anything, by the way. You know, that's you know, that's one of course, you know, thing against injustice or irresponsible, ecologically irresponsible actions is very important. But there's another kind of activism which has nothing to do with being against anything. You know, just being in favor of certain things. Constructive action. You needn't necessarily remind that you're trying to protest or oppose something else, but just to construct something positive, something life affirming.
Yes, developing a new project or something like.
Yeah. Or just, you know, or just creating a beautiful work of art that expresses a love of nature, you know, is a ecological activism, I would say.
I wonder if you could perhaps link it with,
there's
or
nothing
maybe
to say that we could.
Sorry, I can't hear you.
Sorry. Things that have impacted on us, have an influence, have made a difference. Because I can remember, for example, various videos I've seen or leaflets I've had that have really changed the way I've thought about something, or maybe a conversation with somebody. And I'm just thinking about different ways you can be reached, and different ways, you know, which may have happened for each one of us. Sort of pivotal moments that have changed the way we've thought about something. And if it's also that way of gaining information, or, you know, our collective experience in a slightly different way as to what's impacted on us, so that we could understand that better in the way we act now, that understanding that might positively impact on others.
Yes, I know what you mean.
Not expressing it very well, but yeah.
No, I know what you mean, though. Yes, definitely. Yeah, I had an experience on the Native American reservation, and I have never wasted a drop of water since. Because they have to go and collect every bit of water that they used, you know, and it just made me so aware. But anyway, I'll say more about that another time. Yes, it's absolutely spot on with it. Yeah.
Is that direct personal experience, isn't it? And different ways things can do that. So, I mean, it's just pooling that information could help us understand ways in which we could be active and build in different, you know, aspects that might connect with people in different ways. It's one of the reasons I'm keen on it for various reasons, but it's one of the reasons I'm very positive about the tree planting project, because it doesn't actually enable people to take part and physically be out in nature and, you know, doing something practical and then feel connected to it. So, anyway.
Yeah, I think when we get to socialize a little bit more, it'd be really nice just to invite people. We could even do this on a personal level, you know, inviting people into our homes, into our gardens, and really maybe having lots of little mini events where we can not necessarily try and tell people how to live their lives, because I think that's where it goes wrong. But allow them to see how you're living your life, or how you're being, and see if that can just rub off a little bit, because that I think is a very gentle way to learn, as opposed to getting in arguments about what's right and what's wrong and different perspectives, and getting lost in that debate. You know, sometimes, you know, to go and demonstrate and just show, this is where I get back to my little bit of joyful living, simple living, and people seeing that as a way of being and actually discovering it's far more fun than being lost in consumption.
Yes.
Mm.
Yeah. Well, there's I'm going to stop in a minute because I think we should have a few minutes to meditate and dedicate. But just mention that something that may be happening is kind of moving on a little bit from the tree planting project is a tiny living community. Does anybody know about tiny living?
No.
Oh, sounds good.
So this is the idea that, you know, we all have these really, in global terms, you know, vast houses that we live in compared to the kind of dwellings that most people have lived in most societies throughout history. We don't need all of that. You know, you can live in a much smaller, simpler dwelling, which might be made of very natural materials. And of course, if you live as a community, then you don't need so many rooms in one house. You know, you can have a communal kitchen, you know, etc., etc. So there was somebody connected with the Jamyang Center League who has a plan to have a woodland site with a tiny little community.
Wow.
Just what you were saying made me think of that. There, you know,
Gorgeous.
simple way of living.
Mm.
Yes.
Actually, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Actually, yes, I've heard of it because my daughter has been trying to look into it in terms of building her own tiny house in a community. And she's recently joined the GTI after I talked to her about the eco village concept that has been talked about on GTI. So she started getting interested from that perspective. I mean, she's not a practicing Buddhist, but she wants to break out of society. She's an artist and she wants to build her own tiny house. And she says she's got a collection of friends, carpenters and so on, who do different things, who come and help her build one. So wholeheartedly behind that in terms of making that break. So she would be interested in the Leeds project.
Great. Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, hopefully, you know, this been on a little bit on hold, but hopefully that will be starting to things will be starting to happen about that soon.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, please. I mean, I'll write to you
You
separately.
can mention it and you know, say yeah, please do. Yeah. I will. I mean, there may be some kind of email or something that we'll create. Yeah, fine. I'll make sure you go on it. Thanks very much. Maybe we can do a few minutes meditation. Yes.